Welcome everyone, new episode of the daily.dev event. This is the episode number 45. This should have been the episode of September, but for technical reasons, we had a company gathering all together and we met in Serbia with the daily dev team. We had to just shift that by just one day. I see Vincent here already in the chat. Say hi in the chat. Sound check with all the speakers, and I'm really excited because today the topic is really interesting and hot, I would say, for 2024. So is everybody out there ready? Perfect. Okay, perfect. Nice. So I see everyone here. You can type where are you from, and also I would like to know if you have ever used AI in the last 2 years. Usually I get like almost 100%, but some people they don't. So in that case, I would like to know the reasons why. And yes, so today we'll focus on very interesting topics, and I think it's important to understand how we can not just make side projects, but try to make these apps more available and to scale them, optimize them. So we'll go more into deep and details. Perfect. So I think that without further ado, we are about to start. Before we start, of course, a huge shout out to daily dev. Otherwise, this would not have been possible. These free events for everyone. So feel free to share this on social media. We'll also share it, of course. And yes, perfect. I think that we can start. And so I would like to say bye to Vincent and Bart, and I can stay here with Haseeb. Okay. Perfect. Bye. Okay, perfect. Haseeb, we had a call some time ago. I can't remember exactly when, but it was some time ago, and we talked. And I'm glad that you made it here. And so, please feel free to introduce yourself and also introduce also your presentation. And soon I will let you stay on stage. Thank you.
Happy to do it. Thank you for having me, Francesco. So my name is Haseeb Budhani, everybody. I work at a company called Rafay. Rafay is in the business of helping enterprises and cloud providers solve a platform engineering problem. Our product helps them launch modern applications faster. It also helps them launch GPU infrastructure faster. We solve for Kubernetes and cloud automation in the platform. And the net result of our platform is developers are happier. They get to press buttons and get infrastructure immediately. They don't have to wait days and weeks at a time. Everybody's happy. And the enterprise or the customer is happy because, they can actually do a lot with the smaller teams. So everybody wins. It's a good business. We sell to a lot of large enterprises as well as to service providers, and looking forward to sharing more with the team here today.
Perfect. Thank you. If you want, you can start sharing your screen. Just a quick reminder that if you have any question, you can drop them in the chat. I will stay and lurk in the background. And at the end of this presentation, around 25 minutes, we'll have a 5 minutes Q&A session. If you want, Haseeb, you can answer during your presentation. Otherwise, don't worry, I'll keep all these questions for you so you can answer them at the end. Okay? Perfect. I would like also to know from you, where are you from? This is a nice and usually a nice game we can do. I'm actually from Italy, and yes, it's okay. So Haseeb, if you want, you can share your screen, so I can share it. It worked before. Let's see. You're welcome, Nell. Perfect. So we can do like that. Perfect, Haseeb. So best of luck and see you soon. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Again, everybody watching, everybody listening, I appreciate your time. I'll walk through a narrative of the problem that we saw maybe a year ago now in this company as it relates to our customers. We are a company that's been operating for many years now. We've been selling a product for some years. The product that we built originally, we sell it to large companies who may have started their Kubernetes or cloud journey with something like a Rancher. They may have aspirations to build an internal platform. Like they may look at Heroku, for example, and say, Heroku is great, but I want a Heroku for my company. And they may have started with Rancher or some other open source tool. And that's usually our customer. So our customer is somebody who has multiple teams, multiple BUs, multiple different development organizations inside the company, and they want all these developers or data scientists to move a lot faster. They want everything to be automated. They want everything to be ideally GitOps driven. They want pull requests to basically drive infrastructure consumption. That's a key precept of our platform, pull requests for everything. And that's a business that's going well. About a year ago, we saw a problem in our customer base. So we saw that some of our super large customers, as well as our mid-sized enterprise customers, were buying hardware to do this thing called Gen AI. So they would go either go to a Dell or an Asus or a Lenovo, and they would buy GPU gear. They would put it in a data center, and you would have some team that was doing some training tuning job. Or they would go to a cloud and they would lease GPUs for a year or 2 years or 3 years, so multi-year commitments, and they would have all these GPUs sitting there. And then the question would be, okay, well, I have some users in the company who are going to use a chunk of this GPU, a few of them, and they're going to train and tune. Okay. Consistently, what they found was that they were not consuming all of their infrastructure the way they thought they would. They would always have a significant chunk of the infrastructure just sitting there, because their hope was that, okay, we train and tune all models or whatever, right? Take a foundation model and tune it. But then the majority of the company is going to end up working on, they'll build a copilot, they'll work on agents, etc. And that's going to be app builders basically. And they don't need, 32 GPUs or 128 GPUs, some very crazy number. They maybe need a fraction of a GPU, maybe one, maybe none, actually. Depends on what use case they're chasing. So how do you actually mix the two? If this green box on the screen, if this is your GPU allocation, maybe it's in 2 different regions in Amazon, maybe it's in your data center in the US and then another data center in Europe. What do you do next? How do you get people to actually consume them in a good way? So here's what people do anyway, right? So without Rafay, they're doing this anyway. They go build a platform engineering team. They're used to doing this because they were doing this for Kubernetes. They started doing that a few years ago. But similar to the Kubernetes experience most enterprises have had, and I'm sure many of the folks watching this are developers, you may have had experience with sort of namespace as a service or just a Kubernetes cluster provisioning in your company. For most companies, it's not that easy. There are lots and lots of people who are spun up to provide a DevOps or platform engineering function. It takes a long time to get these people hired. Many of them have to be trained. Their goal is to build a PaaS, like a platform as a service experience for their internal consumers. That's what they're trying to build. And once they have something working, the theory is that once this is working, hey, I can go think about some ML workbench that lives on top of this GPU infrastructure, and then my developers will be happy. The data shows that that's not how it works out. The data shows that 85% of projects either are significantly behind or are just fail, completely just go to zero. And then the company starts all over again. This is history that we have all lived when it came to Kubernetes. And we saw that some of our customers were about to go live it again in this new world called AI, Gen AI. We're trying to help customers who may take this journey rethink their strategy. Essentially, what we are offering is a platform. So we call it our Rafay sort of GPU PaaS offering. We enable customers to run a PaaS inside their companies, basically, where programmatically you can dynamically partition and deliver secure, isolated instances of compute to your internal teams. Simply by, literally on the left side of the screen, you're seeing a YAML file. Essentially, what you're going to do is you're going to say, in my company, I want to offer 3 SKUs, small, medium, large. This can be red, blue, green. This can be ABC. The configurations you decide. If you want to offer small as no GPU and medium as 1/7 of a GPU, whether we support GPU virtualization as well, or whatever you want it to be, depends. Or you may start with something today, and then 3 months later, you may change your mind. Completely okay. Rafay will take care of the bin packing challenges that happen, etc. These are all things that the team doesn't have to worry about anymore. Fundamentally, Our customers, the platform engineers, get to focus on the experience that the developers and data scientists are looking for. I need compute, on top of which all I need is a Jupyter notebook that is pre-tuned for, I guess, Anaconda. That's it. That's all. I don't need anything else. Or actually, I need this, plus I need you to deploy MLflow for me. Or just give me end-to-end Kubeflow. Or just Kserve. Or I just need Ray because I prefer job-based engagements versus I don't want to own the entire platform. You decide. We provide all of these capabilities in a platform. Many of our customers who had purchased hardware a priori have fallen into the following trap. They have the hardware and they can't convert the hardware into a private cloud, as it were. So then what happens is their developers go to the public cloud and they're using SageMaker or Bedrock or Vertex AI or something. And these are incredibly good tools, but they're very expensive, like incredibly expensive to use. Plus, many large enterprises have a concern that when they are using these tools, they're not entirely clear on what happens with their data when they push it into the cloud and are using these tools. Are these platforms essentially getting better based on my data? And I don't want that. Or is there something else going on? I don't want to expose my data to these offerings in the cloud. I would rather do this here. Plus, in any case, because of data gravity, much of this data, there's a report by Dell that says 70% of all data lives in data centers. So, okay, in my data that I want to use to train my models or whatnot, it lives here anyway. So I don't want to go to the cloud. I want to bring the SageMaker or the Bedrock experience to my internal users, but I want to do it here in my data center. Or if you don't want to do data centers, that's okay. I'll still get allocation from maybe CoreWeave, but then on top of CoreWeave, I want to deliver the same experience to my developers. I could be using CoreWeave. I could also be using Amazon because Amazon may have given me a great deal on A100s or H100s. All of this can now come into a singular platform, which is very easy to use. It's a low-code, no-code experience for the platform team. But for the developers, it's a super simple experience. You go to a portal, you press a button, you tie it to a notebook or a Kubeflow instance or whatever you prefer, and you're off to the races. In the back, Rafay will take care of chargebacks internally. We'll take care of the isolation boundary management, so the making sure that all of these tenants are secure and they can't sort of do lateral escalations, etc. So all of those things are taken care of by the platform. It'll take care of Kubernetes and Kubernetes management and upgrades and add-on management, all the things that you expect anyway. That's what we've been doing for a number of years as Rafay. And now the same platform that we've been selling for a while to large enterprises becomes very relevant in this new world where the foundational technologies are the same. In my opinion, there's a difference. The difference is that the GPUs are, well, there's not a whole lot of them available. So people have to be very careful about consumption. If you allocate maybe 4 GPUs to somebody for some job, how quickly can you take it back, etc. So there's a lot of controls that are needed on top now, but the foundational technologies are the same. And that allows Rafay to deliver incredible experiences to customers very, very fast. I'm going to go into the stack. Again, this very technical audience, I want to explain what happens sort of under the covers. And right after I describe the stack, I'll stop and we can talk, and I'm happy to answer questions. So the platform is basically 3 layers. The very first layer is what we call a cluster vending layer. This is not just about, okay, I provision a Kubernetes cluster. That's not it, right? That's a basic thing. Obviously, we got to do that, but there's a lot that goes into it. There's enforcement of, for example, virtualization. So then if I have virtualized GPUs and I want to create compute instances on top of virtualized GPUs, how do I create boundaries, etc.? What does multi-tenancy mean in this case? How do I do network isolation, not just compute isolation, for example? How do I make sure this runs across environments? Maybe somebody doesn't want Kubernetes, maybe they want Slurm. These are all things that are taken care of by the cluster binding layer in the platform. On top of which, we have a governance layer. And this is where the majority of the company spends time. There's a lot that happens here. This is the thankless job that nobody thinks about that's happening, but it is happening. It's a significant body of work to make sure that we can do things like inventory management and matchmaking, right? If you only need 1 GPU, Where do I put you, etc. Right? How do I do cataloging? What's our GitOps strategy? So we provide a GitOps engine in the product. It's not like you have to bring another one, etc. It's already built in. What is the chargeback strategy for this business? How do I make sure that I get paid for everything? Because this platform could also be used by a GPU cloud company. It doesn't need to be an enterprise. We have customers who have basically launched GPU clouds in other countries. And they have users on the internet, basically in their region, who are coming and consuming this platform. How do you actually make sure that you can do chargebacks, et cetera, et cetera? So these are things that happen. And like I said, this is a large body of work. Many of my customers, I find, when they start their journeys with Kubernetes, for example, they think that the problem they don't have to solve is provisioning. And I guess we're done. No, provisioning is a very basic step. There's a lot that happens after that, and that's where we all have turned our hair white. That's what's happened to me. And we continue to work on this layer. The third layer is what we call our experience layer. This is where we provide essentially a low-code, no-code experience where we can deliver many different services to our customers. We have built many of them. Some of them we built like things like NVCF is NVIDIA Cloud Functions. Run AI is a company that NVIDIA has acquired. NIMS is an inference endpoint offering from NVIDIA. So we offer those as part of the platform. So NVIDIA customers can come and use these on Rafay today. Very, very nice, elegant integrations. You press a button, and kind of magic happens. But then we also offer other capabilities in the product. So we offer the entire Kubeflow experience or subsets of them. We offer KubeRay, we offer Jupyter Notebooks. But more importantly, our customers and our partners get to build new ones as often as they want, as fast as they want. And they can now deliver these experiences to their customers. So this experience delivery layer ends up being the most important layer to my customer base and to my partners. Because yeah, they can come and say, I'm going to deliver to you a framework to build agents faster, or I'm going to help you build copilots faster. They will build an experience and they will deliver that as an offering that sits on top of this platform. All of these things come together to deliver the small, medium, large, extra large experience you're seeing on the screen, on top of which you get to consume AI applications. If your company is thinking about making GPUs consumable internally, either they're going to end up using a Bedrock SageMaker service, which is a subset of this at some level. SageMaker does not use Kubernetes, or you're going to build this. It's always, there's only two options, right? Build or buy. There's no other option. Building this is really, really hard. We've been at it for a long, long time with a lot of people. And that's why we are where we are. We built a very elegant solution. If you want to try it, please feel free to go to our website, just sign up. There's a free trial, give it a shot. There's a lot of pressure on all of us to go faster and monetize Gen AI for our businesses, and Rafay can help. At some level, we're just a plumbing company, right? We provide infrastructure and plumbing. You build the applications that make money. But that's the thing. Focus on the applications. We'll take care of the plumbing problems for you. I'll stop here, Francesco, and stop sharing, my friend. And let's pick up the conversation.
Perfect. Yes. Wait, let me put this here. Nice. Thank you so much, Haseeb, for this introduction. If you have any question, you can drop them below. I have a couple of questions. The first one is that if this presentation will be available somewhere for everyone, so you can just drop the link in the private chat, and there'll be share this on the YouTube chat. I'm sure that someone wanted to ask this. That's something that you can do even later if you want. Yes, I have. So I've been following. Thank you for the presentation. I also loved the infographics. Like, what do you think is like a feature that is like the killer feature of the Rafay app? Do you think?
So surprisingly, the experience delivery layer that I was talking about ends up being the most interesting one, because consistently what happens is we deliver some capability and the customer says, this is great, but I need it to be slightly different. I'll give you an example from last night. So we were doing a demo, like, I don't know, 11 p.m. my time. to a team who's selling to a customer in India. And we showed them a notebook experience, and they said, "This is cool, but my customer really wants to use the Anaconda fork. Plus, there's this one specific PyTorch version that they would like. Now what do we do? Oh my God!" I'm like, "Okay, here." 20 minutes later, we have all of this figured out, and that's become the most important thing, because everybody is slightly different, and if we can serve them the way they want to be served, I think everybody wins. And that's the innovation that in hindsight, when I look at it, like, I get excited about things like zero trust access, which we have built in our platform, but the experience delivery that the team has built is magic. Just every customer loves it.
Nice, thank you. So basically the ability to adapt to specific needs for specific customers, which is very, can I say that it's hard to do, but yeah.
It's very hard to do. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. And I also would like to ask you, like, what are the future projects, and I would say, for example, what's the direction do you think the company is going now?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. So, the critical thing for me, by the way, I'm the CEO of the company, I did not call that out earlier, is look, things change in the market. Are we able to adapt? Right. So I'll tell you a story, Francesco. So early this year, so in January, I had called a board meeting. It was not our regular board sessions, and I said something that was designed to kind of make people stop and really pay attention. And I said, we've been a Kubernetes company for 5 years now. Let me tell you something. Kubernetes is enough furniture, and nobody cares. So these are a bunch of people who have put in a lot of money in this company, and they were like, "What the hell are you talking about? Why would you say that?" But the point was that, look, I'm seeing a trend. The market is moving towards applications. The market is moving towards people focused on Gen AI use cases. Kubernetes is an enabler, furniture. But I need to focus on the higher layer. I need to build an experience delivery mechanism. So you need to allow us to do this experiment so that I can better serve my customers. So my investors were very helpful, and they allowed us to do it. But more importantly, the team saw this, right? So if we keep seeing this, if we keep talking to our customers, spending time with them, and seeing these angles that come in the market, we'll be successful. And that's what's happened here. What happens consistently, particularly in infrastructure spaces, companies are built, and then they just continue to do the thing that they were doing 5 years ago. But the market changes, right? So my colleagues here, I'm very proud that they have been very responsive. They are very attuned to where the market is going, what developers want, and they've been able to react. And because of their sort of insights and foresights, we're able to make money, right? So that's what I see. So given the team that I have the honor of working with, I'm convinced that this company is going to be super successful. We're already doing well, but I think we have an incredible journey in front of us where we can be a key player in the GPU infrastructure space.
Thank you so much, Haseeb. This was a great presentation. If you want, you can stay with us at the end. I will invite you again. Otherwise, no worries. I heard that like you have also calls at 11 p.m. So I don't know. Maybe you know that you need to adapt. So no worries. But thanks again. If you give me the link, I will share this in the chat soon. So stay tuned for that. And yes, thanks again. And of course, I left the links in the description so you can follow Haseeb and also the Rafay app. Okay, perfect.
Francesco, I shared the deck link with you. It should be accessible by everybody.
Yes, I will share this right now, and then I can invite Bart. Okay, thank you so much, Haseeb. See you.
Thank you, Francesco. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, perfect. We are already at talk number 2. We have Bart van de Kerkhove. I don't know if I pronounced that decently. And he's the CEO at Raito. And yes, so please introduce yourself. I'm actually currently working on a project that might involve these technologies, so I will stay very very active here. Yes, looking forward. So please introduce yourself and tell us what your talk will be about.
Yeah, hey Francesco, and near perfect pronunciation. So we've been exercising each other's names before the webinar. So that's 9 out of 10. Yeah, so Bart van de Kerkhoven. I am one of the co-founders at Raito, and we are a platform for all cloud data security workflows for Gen AI and self-service analytics.
Perfect. Thank you.
Oh,
And
right.
if you want,
I was
yeah.
going to say, I forgot, and I'm going to talk about how we help with data security for RAG.
Perfect. So that's the word I was looking for. If you want, you can start sharing your screen. As usual, you can drop your questions. I mean, there are no dumb questions. You can even ask like basic stuff. What is reg? Why should I use it? I'm sure that Bart will be happy because we're still in an early stage. So we are
Yeah.
allowed. We're even allowed to ask what is JavaScript. But we can ask literally everything, and maybe this will give you the opportunity to maybe expand on some parts. And yes, so that's it. I don't know, Bart, if you share your screen, so
Yeah.
we can start. Perfect. I think I will put you in this layout, and then because I think this is might be better. I don't know. And perfect. So best of luck with that. I will still be in the chat active, so no worries. And see you in 25-30 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Francesco.
Bye.
Yeah, I had a couple of slides to tell you who I am, but yeah, this small introduction already. Just to reiterate, so what is Raito? We are a multi-cloud data security platform for all your data security workflows for GenAI and analytics across your data stack. And we support workflows from monitoring access and usage, detecting risks, to requesting access, implementing access, and masking and filtering, and so forth. But today I'll talk about RAG security. And why is that? Well, um, if you look at the research, at the reports that are out there for business applications for Gen AI, it's not just creating marketing content or cool visuals, cool videos. Actually, one of the use cases that particularly excites me is using RAG and LLM, to analyze data. So you have an AI agent, you ask it a couple of questions about your internal documents, sales data or employee data, and you get an answer from your AI agent. In fact, this is a major use case at Morgan Stanley, where they're rolling this out like for 10,000 employees, that allow those employees to ask questions to the AI agent about basically anything on their internal documentation. And if you look at the reports out there, you'll see that, for instance, 75% of C-level find the data analytics use case a very important use case. Now, if you want to use Gen AI for analytics, well, you're going to need RAG, right? In the same way, you want to write clothing recommendations when you go to the mountains and don't end up in your underwear freezing your ass off. Uh, when you ask your AI agent for information, you don't want it to hallucinate, right? And hallucinations is a big problem. Uh, all kinds of solutions are being investigated, but I think one of the best solutions to prevent hallucinations and get appropriate answers to your questions is to do RAG. RAG, retrieval augmented generation. Basically, it means that when you ask your LLM or your AI agent a question, the AI agent goes and retrieves the information needed to answer your question and gives it together with your question to the LLM, so that the LLM has the right context to answer your question, right? So you don't end up in your underwear in the mountains. RAG is great, helps you prevent hallucinations, but there is a big risk. Giving your LLM access to your company's data, man, tell it to your CISO and look at their reaction. They will not be super excited about it. And again, other research, this time by Gartner, saying that 30% of enterprises deploying AI had a security breach. 30%, 1 in 3 almost. Of which 60% of those breaches were breaches through internal employees, right? So yeah, security teams, C-level, they see the upside of RAG, but they're also kind of scared about the security. And that's where I'm now looking at my slide. I should have done better at setting everything up, but there are animations coming, right? So this is not the final slide. What I just want to say here is that if you've been in security, a lot of the topics are old topics, right? A lot of security risks around Gen AI are actually known security risks. They're not new, except for one, prompt injection. That is a net new data security risk. It's actually a big security risk, and I've done a couple of posts about that on LinkedIn on how hackers can use prompt engineering to manipulate your AI agent to send, corporate sensitive information to their file server. And I'll show you how that looks like. So step one in the hackers workflow to extract sensitive information using prompt injection is they find the credentials somewhere in the Git repository to your S3, and they poison a little file in your S3 with a prompt injection, right? That's a little red symbol. And then they go away. And then they wait, because what happens, somebody is excited about RAG, there's a very cool use case, and they connect their RAG to their S3. And they start vectorizing those files and storing it into the vector DB. And that little prompt injection, whoop, is nicely vectorized and stored in the vector DB. And we wait again. We wait for a user to ask the AI agent a question about your company's data. That AI agent performs a RAG, right? It will go to that vector DB, collects the information needed to answer the user's question, but beware, that little prompt injection is now infecting your AI agent, right? You see it pulsating there. And now with contextual memory and all that jazz, you only have to do it once. It sticks, it's basically stuck in the AI agent's memory, continuously poisoning your AI agent. And what happens is each time the user asks questions and the AI agent answers the questions with sensitive information, all that information is also sent to the hacker's file server. I did not make this up. This is a real use case. But it doesn't end there, right? Because now we got a bunch of security regulations coming your way in Europe and the United States that will result in a fine when you have a data breach, right? For instance, recently there was $120 million fine for Citibank because they didn't have good data governance practices, boring stuff like that. Well, that's going to increase with the security regulations, and on top of that, your CISO will also be held accountable. So your CISO is even more nervous for Gen AI and RAG because they can end up fired, they can be held accountable for fines, even end up in jail, right? So this kind of explains why your CISO and the security team is not super excited about Gen AI. Here's another example. The White House, they told their staffers, so nobody in the White House can use Copilot anymore. They had to kick it off their PCs. Too much security risks, right? So this is an example. There have been too many compromises with Copilot, RAG, and so forth. So, I mean, Francesco said it earlier. We're early in discovery on this topic. We're all learning, right? So we're gradually learning on this topic. And a guy I follow on LinkedIn, Christophe Parissel, he's a very important security guy at a French bank. He recently wrote a very cool like paper or article on 3 patterns to secure LLM, and this is a bit my interpretation. So he says there are 3 patterns to secure LLM. One is conversational integrity, and that's your AI agent, the plugin in the AI agent, when it engages with the end user, it tries to prevent prompt injection. It identifies the users. But basically, this is the point where when human language comes in and it's littered with some weird ass manipulations for prompt injection, it filters that out. Another, like, let's call it line of defense, is linguistic isolation. Basically, there you translate the vague human language with a lot of ambiguity. You translate that to machine readable queries, stuff you can call an API with, or you can query a vector DB with. That translation there is also an additional step where you can introduce security measures to prevent prompt injection or other security risks. And then finally, the last line of defense is knowledge reflection. Basically means that you really want to limit what you can access, which data you can access during fine-tuning and RAG. Fine-tuning and RAG are 2 different beasts, but they all consume data. And there you really want to be careful what you allow the LLM to RAG, which data to access, right? And I added below I added a little scale from flexibility to reliability. The conversational integrity is very flexible, right? It allows you to, in a very dynamic way, prevent prompt injection, data leakage, and so forth at the AI agent. But if you compare it to, for instance, managing data access for your LLM or data security at the data source, that is a bit more rigid, but it's also more reliable, right? If you have to rely on your AI agent's capabilities to detect prompt injection, there's some fuzziness there. It will always capture it, but also you're kind of relying on the engineer that built the AI agent to configure it well, to implement that security control. That is less when you do knowledge reflection, because they're basically, the data engineer responsible for the warehouse or the lake or the vector DB basically integrates the permissions in a data source and you're settled. And it's that last part, the knowledge reflection, managing data security in the warehouse, that Raito sits. And I'll show that in a minute in a demo. But basically, that's a complex slide. I won't go into too much, but yeah, we use context from your data, so metadata, context from your user attributes, to dynamically manage permissions in the vector databases, the files, your warehouses, basically manage what you can access through RAG. It's a schema, it's boring, right? I think maybe what would be better is that I show it in a short demo. And for that, I need to stop sharing screen and go to my demo. So for the demo, we built a small RAG application. Yeah, it's super simple. Yeah, you should be seeing my screen, right? Is that correct? Are you seeing the?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Right. Brilliant. Thanks, Francesco.
Best of luck with the demo.
Oh yeah, live demo. This goes against all best practice.
This is live 100%. So yeah. Wish him luck. Bye.
Yeah, everybody wish me luck that the demo gods are with me and stuff doesn't break. So super simple RAG. AI agent with RAG, right? And I'm logged in as Mary Carissa, and she is part of the sales department. So she can access sales data. No, sorry, she's part of the HR department. She can access HR data. She cannot access sales data, right? So what I'll do is I'll ask you a couple of questions. So for instance, we are a multinational, and I'll ask you the question, which employees live in France, right? So now it looks in all the employment contracts, and it looks for employees that are living in France. So in this case, we have Luc Boucher that lives in France. We even have their address. And it's sensitive data, right? You don't want everybody to access it, but Mary has access to that data because she's part of HR, right? So now she can ask, for instance, how much does Luc Boucher earn, right? And now, again, we look in the employment contract, 55K per year. Super sensitive data, but if we look at our access controls in Raito, we have a permission, right, that gives the LM access to HR data. So we give it basically access to the vector database with all our vectorized data. And we have applied a filter that lets you see HR data. So this filter will show you HR data. And we've applied a dynamic rule in Raito that says that all users from the HR human resources department can see the HR data, right? So a very easy filter in Raito that you can dynamically grant using to people using information we find in Workday or Active Directory, wherever you have your organization defined, we can look at that and then dynamically grant your HR people access to HR data, right? Now, Mary is, curious, and she wants to know sales data, right? So she does a little cheeky test of the AI agent, and she asks, how much did we invoice one of our customers, Innovate Tech SARL, right? So Mary's kind of testing the AI agent to see whether she has access. So of course, the chatbot is like, oh, hold on, that is sales data. You're in HR, you don't have access, right? Okay, Mary doesn't have access. What does she do now? Well, good thing is that the chatbot gives her a recommendation on how to take action. So she can now go to Raito and request access to the sales data in the LLM, right? So I've opened the URL recommended by the AI agent, and it points her to the permissions to, LLM or RAG sales data, and she can request access. We've configured it as such that the access request by Mary will be automatically approved for 1 day. So for 1 day, she will get access to, or she will be able to RAG sales data just for 1 day. And after that day, permissions will be automatically revoked, right? So now what is happening in the backend is Raito sends a command to our on-prem agents to update the permissions in the VectorDB. And if all goes well, fingers crossed, if now Mary asks the question again, how much did we invoice Innovate Tech? She asks that question again. She should get an answer from the chatbot because, invoices. So maybe the update didn't work. Let me check. Just failed. So I'll try again. Okay, sorry, the sync wasn't happening yet. Okay, one moment. So yeah, that's the demo gods, right? I think we should try again and ask the bot. So how much did we invoice? And there we go. So we invoiced Innovate Tech 18,000 euros, right? So it looks like the demo gods are still behind me, but that shows you that Mary now has access to sales data. She can start asking questions about the sales, the invoices, and so forth for 1 day, and then we're going to automatically revoke those permissions. And this is all tag-based, right? So you can have policies that are fully automated end-to-end. So you can have, fine-grained access management per domain without interrupting people in their jobs, without killing their productivity. And that is what we do with Raito. So give a short introduction to Raito and then showed you how you can use Raito for RAG security. And that's what I wanted to show today. Any questions?
Perfect. Nice. It seems everyone is has a shorter presentation today, which is great. I felt bad a bit for you, Bart. We have some questions, so we can just start dropping them. Also, thank you so much, Brian, for remembering people that you should, if you add a Q in the message, I'm more likely to don't miss it. We have a more generic one. I would like to start with this one, Bart. Like, why would I use this AI specifically?
So what we see more and more, and that's particularly in the somewhat larger enterprises, is that they use AI agents to lower the threshold for their employees to consume information. Now, if you look at the numbers, the data, it says that average data literacy, so knowing how to do SQL, knowing how to read reports, is limited to 30%, right? So only 30% of an enterprise, and that's optimistic, knows how to technically consume data and get information. With RAG and LLM and having AI agents that connect to your company's data, you lower the threshold and you can basically give everybody in your organization access to information. And that is super important because information allows a company's employees to be more productive, but also make the company more profitable, right? And this is the main use case companies invest in self-service analytics, but also Gen AI, is to finally, at the end of the day, improve the company's profitability using data and insights.
Thank you, Bart. And we have more questions. Let's try to answer them all. Let's try. I think at some point you shown some live database. So does this show, was that like live database access by the LLM?
The RAG access, yeah, didn't show that, but we in the demo environment we use Snowflake in the backend, right? So what I've shown just now in the chat was how somebody got access to sales employee data, not to sales data. I updated the permissions using Nexus request, and then they got access to sales data. And basically, we could RAG the vector database in Snowflake and provide the insights on customer data. So backend was the vector database in Snowflake, but this could also be in Azure and other vector DBs, right?
I always love how developers, they are so interested about a specific tech stack. Of course, I really love that.
Makes sense.
Yes, I think we have also a question about API credentials. So how does it work? If you can discuss a bit more about this. Thank you.
That's a very good question. So in this particular case, we use the row filters in the Snowflake vector database. There's a similar approach in Azure. So there we basically manage access directly in the vector database to filter out what they can see. For API credentials, there we're looking at what do we want to vectorize or what do we want to expose during fine-tuning. And in that case, we would have to give API credentials to the service accounts, right? This particular case, for instance, we do this for AWS S3, where you want to fine-tune or you want to delineate what exactly you want to expose to the or vectorize in the first place. And it's a good question, because basically the question is, at which point do I manage access? Do I manage access really at the very start, and safeguard or delineate what I want to expose to my AI agent in the first place? What can be vectorized? Then you really have to start working with API credentials. Or once everything is vectorized, how do I, in a very fine grain, determine what you can RAG, who can RAG what, and prevent data leakages in that point? So, long explanation. Summarized, you'll have to do it at several points. So yes, at one point you have to give API credentials to the AI, and that's very early in the chain.
Thank you. And I think we have one more question, which is related to that, which is like basically you made this demo, but
Yeah.
someone is asking like if this is just for big businesses, or maybe how will this behave with like smaller data sets?
Yeah, right. So typically we work with organizations typically above 1,000 employees, where there's a lot of data. So, I mean, the person who asked is right. If you have small data sets or a limited number of users, or data is not super sensitive, this somebody can do manually. If you work with a lot of employees, there's a lot of change, a lot of data. If you don't use right, you create massive bottlenecks in data security workflows. For GenAI, also for self-service analytics even, and you basically frustrate the business while also exposing the organization to security risks.
Thank you. We have one quick question I can answer quickly. The next demonstration event of Daily Dev is already on YouTube. It will be on the 29th of October. Usually we do this at the end of the month, but we skipped by just one day, so you can just already check it out. One more is why do we need the text-based queries?
So this is going back to the point I made earlier. SQL reporting can be too technical for a lot of people in the organization. It also restricts the information gathering, because you need to know exactly what to query and what the data model is. You need to know the syntax, and a lot of people don't know that in the organization. What GenAI plus RAG allows you to do is basically let less technical users in the organization ask questions to an AI agent, right? And then also allow them to do it in their language without having to know the conceptual data model in the underlying data lake or data warehouse. And the result is that it lowers the threshold so that more people can access the data, get the information they need to be productive. But of course, then you really need to be very careful with data security and data privacy, and that's where Raito comes in. We provide the guardrails without killing productivity.
Thank you so much, Bart. And I'm not gonna ask him to make the intro again. Someone asked that. This is why we're on YouTube. You can just go back and watch it again later. So we are not gonna risk it. But yes, thank you so much, Bart. It was a great introduction. If you can stay in the end, you'll get an extra shout out. But you can check all the links below in the description. Thanks again, and see you soon. Okay.
Thanks for having me, Francesco. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And last but not least, Vincent, I left you last on purpose because I wanted to end this with a good friend of mine. And so, Vincent, now you've been working on the Trunk.io, right? Please introduce yourself. Looking forward for this presentation. And yes, please.
Yeah, actually, the first time we probably talked together was when I was still at Appright. But I've been working as a DevRel focused on developer experience back at Appright, and now I'm at Trunk, and we call ourselves a developer experience platform, which just means we make like obscure developer experience dev tools that like solve the problems that we don't think about. As developers, like we're really good at suffering silently without telling people, so we try to solve some of those issues. And yeah, that's related to what I'm talking about today.
Yeah, I don't know if you know that our motto is daily dev, where developers suffer together. It's our motto. So
exactly.
we have something in common. So this is probably why we are so aligned.
Yeah.
So Vincent, please, if you want, you can share your screen and you can start giving a trailer of your presentation. And remember that you can always drop your questions. So yes, and if you want, you have 25 or 30 minutes if you want. It's up to you. And this is the presentation. I really love the style. So quick trailer, and then I leave you alone on the stage. Thank you.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about something that bothers me and a lot of other developers a lot, but we kind of just pretend doesn't exist, which is flaky tests. And the way that we're approaching this is very interesting, right? It's not one of those things that you can be like, I'm going to throw in an LLM at the problem and it will magically fix the problem. We have to be a little bit creative in how we can realistically help tackle this problem with AI. But a lot of the traditional classic workflows is really what we're trying to amplify. We're trying to amplify what we already know is reliable. And so this will, give a lot of people a lot more confidence to try a tool, because a lot of the teams that works on testing are really shy about AI tools, right? So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Best of luck with your presentation. See you in 25, 30 minutes. And yes, bye-bye. And if you can drop your questions, I will lurk in the back in the chat. No worries. I'm still here. Bye.
All right. Amazing. Thank you so much. I don't have anything really, really special or cool to show. I really loved the previous two presentations, and they were all very technical. This is going to be very much focused from the perspective of just me looking at what we're trying to build, talking to people who might use our tools, and trying to get a feel of the experience side of things and the product side of things. And this is not very technical, so it'll be really light. It'll be really interesting to talk about. But let's talk about a lot of the really cool Gen AI tools that get a lot of attention today. These are some examples that I've explored and I've used in particular for V0. I'm a terrible designer and I can't write front-end code to save my own life. So V0 is one of those really cool things that's been getting a lot of attention and I've used, right? Octomind, the same thing. I don't like writing tests, and so whenever I see a company that tries to generate tests for you, it's always super interesting to explore. And I almost think that this might be a better approach, because when you write your own tests, you take your own biases when you design the system into writing those tests. And that's not always the best way to write tests, right? And so it's been really cool to follow some of these tools. The problem is like developers do a lot more than just writing code, right? I find that a lot of these tools are really focused on that one part of the problem where developers are producing code. But I think the less glorious parts of the developer journey is where we suffer a lot more silently, right? There's AI co-pilots and all kinds of cool stuff to help you generate code. But other than just writing code and writing tests, you have to submit it for review, you run tests in CI, you have to deploy, you repeat, and there's so many more steps in the loop. And some parts of the workflow is now faster. Presumably, if you have like GitHub Copilot, you can write code slightly faster. But with Gen AI, right, the fundamental workflow of that process of you writing code, writing tests, submitting it for review, running tests in CI, deploying and repeating does not change. And a lot of the workflow and its existing pain points persist, and we kind of forget about them, right? I think lots of the opportunity, there's a lot of opportunity for Gen AI to amplify forgotten parts of the developer journey. And that's one of the things that we've been exploring at Trunk, right? Some teams that we've talked to are also really shy about AI dev tools. It's easy to say they're too conservative or they're falling behind, or it's a skill issue, but really it's because of these reasons that we find pretty common. And all of these apply to trying to fix flaky tests with AI tools, right? It's like a niche area of software, right? So I was an electrical engineer some time ago, and there was a lot of bespoke FPGA or microcontroller software. That stuff is the problem with trying to work on that kind of projects with what we have and what we can see with generative AI is that there's no training data for this. When I was at Wind River and we made embedded operating systems for rovers and rockets and stuff like that, it's single-use hardware, and we have to write firmware for it. That hardware will never be used for another project. It is used once and once only, and it's really difficult to get anything usable out of a model for things like that. And there's also just certain Gen AI tools for a lot of teams are too heavy-handed for them. They would like more insight, more control, or to have those tools take less of a transformative role, right? To change less of their existing workflow, and other stuff like lacking confidence in results, especially with more complex projects. These are, this is stuff that I hear from people and things that we have to try to address. So, I mean, I still think transformative and disruptive tools are really cool, but sometimes Gen AI is like better used to amplify existing workflows instead. And that's sort of the approach that we've taken towards Flaky Tests. Okay, a couple of things I wanted to talk about, but before that, the agenda, we're going to be defining the problem first, so everyone is on board with what a Flaky Test is. I'm not sure that it's ubiquitous enough that everybody is aware of the problem, but also I want to cover what developers do today and where AI can come in and help us improve that experience that we face today. And just an announcement, stick to the end. We are hiring. So if any of what I talk about, any of the things that we're working on is interesting to you, come work with me. Let's define the problem first. So Flaky tests are really interesting, unique challenges. Basically, it's when a test, if you run it twice, it could fail all 2 times, just once, or not at all. It's completely random. It's like you're flipping a coin or rolling a die to see what happens. The test results end up looking like a Christmas tree. Even if nothing has changed in your code, you run that same test twice, it might fail one of the times. Or if you run it 10 times, it might fail 2 out of the 10 times randomly, right? And non-deterministic tests are worthless, right? I was watching a presentation while doing research for some of these topics from Roy Williams from Meta. He sort of describes Flaky tests to be poisonous, and I think is really accurate, right? Like, you can write the best tests in the world that solves the biggest problems and finds the craziest bugs, but if you can't trust the results that your CI jobs spit out 99% of the time, it's like, it doesn't matter, right? It's poisonous and erodes people's trust in tests. And this is an experience that a lot of people have faced, right? You raise a PR and then you see a comment, you're like, hey, tests aren't passing. And you're like, oh, of course, tests aren't passing. And so you're like, okay, tests aren't passing. I took a look. I updated some text in docs because I'm a DevRel. Usually I work on docs. Why the hell are the mobile E2E tests failing in this mono repo? And probably Flaky tests. This is what I get most of the time, right? They just tell me to rerun the test. And I do. I rerun them, and now a different set of tests are passing. I get annoyed. I'm like, please send help. And eventually, whoever is reviewing my code ends up just rerunning the test for me and tells me, hey, I think it's fixed. I'm like, cool. But 20 minutes later, when that code makes it to main branch, the tests are going to start failing again in the post commit job, and then the Git blame says the last person who touched main branch was you, and you get in trouble. And, everybody gets distracted from what they're doing. So obviously, tests shouldn't behave this way, right? And Flaky tests appear for all kinds of reasons, which is why it's really difficult to solve for humans and for trying to naively throw a model at the problem. We see the same issues because it could be from poorly written test code, which is easiest to fix. It could be poorly written production code, which is a lot worse, but also much more difficult to fix. If you find that test, you need to change a lot more things to get that fixed. But the worst of all is, usually with Flaky tests, it's because of flaky infrastructure. So if you can imagine, your end-to-end test requires 4 different containers to come up and be taken down. If one of them doesn't get taken down properly, your test is flaky. If one of them sets up a little later than you expect, your test is flaky, right? And so we see this manifesting in the sense that a lot of companies, even some of the most respected engineering teams, face this problem. We scour the internet for research on this topic and papers and engineering blogs, and we find that some of the best engineering teams are really struggling with this. Taking Uber for example, like if you have a monorepo with 1,000 tests out of 600,000 that end up being flaky, it's a small percentage, but you have to think of it this way: if every one of those 1,000 tests have a 1% chance to fail randomly, if you run all 600,000 tests, you will always end up with one or more flaky tests just by probability. And it gets really annoying, right? Like it's really painful for a lot of these companies to deal with this, right? Most big tech companies have engineering blogs of engineering managers really complaining about this. And then here's how we try to address the problem, but it didn't really work. And it's consistently, the biggest pain points are, it's going to interrupt your pull requests because you don't want to merge code that says tests are broken, even if it's flaky. You waste a lot of debugging time. Every single time tests break on main, everybody drops what they're doing and it's like, oh, why is this broken? That's really annoying. You erode trust in tests, and you end up having people that either don't believe the tests are accurate or catching anything useful, and they ignore test results, or they don't want to add more tests because they're going to be like, I don't want to add more flaky things to a already flaky, system of tests. The overhead of managing flaky tests, if you're an engineering manager, a lot of them that I talk to find this the most annoying, because if they want to create 5 different tickets for 5 different flaky tests, that could, cost them an hour's worth of time to try to figure out who do I assign this to, and it's annoying. And then there's also context switching costs. Context switching costs, I think, is the bit of suffering that we as software engineers tend to not talk about enough. And it's that every single time we context switch as knowledge workers, we waste about 23 minutes before we can refocus. We're really just easily distracted. It's like when you take a meeting and you're focused, you take a meeting, you need like another almost half an hour before you're productive and in the zone again. Anyway, we made a little calculator for this. If you want to go and play around with it, if you have flaky tests to see how our math works. But yeah, consistently when we talk to people underestimate how much flaky tests are impacting them, right? And I have some more numbers. I'm going to fly through them. But if you want to read them, I'll give you a moment to read them. Even teams like Google will really, really notice themselves suffering from a lot of flaky tests, especially the more complicated tests that are meant to test things end to end, and the really high value tests. When they fail, they're almost always flaky, and it's really annoying when that happens, right? And it does waste a lot of computing resources. 2 to 16% of computing resources for a team or teams or a monorepo at Google is a lot of money. Anyway, so we hate flaky tests. What do we do about them? Well, the existing solution for most teams is to suffer silently. Like Francesco has said, we tend to just ignore problems. So there's no automatic detection of flaky tests. When a PR fails, someone usually reruns the test a few times to realize, this test is flaky. I can ignore it safely, right? But that wastes a lot of time. They don't tell anybody about it because we suffer silently, and we go about our day and pretend nothing has happened. Flaky tests are normal. I just have to rerun tests every single time I see it. I just burned an hour by ignoring the problem and swept it under the rug. And then someone else on my team or in our organization will come across the same problem only to suffer silently again, right? This is the typical way it works. Uber and Dropbox have devoted a lot of time into trying to address flaky test issues, and they have various in-house solutions. And it usually involves 4 different stages of resolving that problem. Detecting flaky tests, and this is really easy to do. If you take a look at 10 runs of a flaky test, and if it goes pass, 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 fail, pass, pass, fail, pass, 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 it's flaky. Like, if this is happening in the main branch of your repository, I don't even need to know why it's failing. You don't need fancy techniques. A simple rule set will tell you this is probably flaky, right? And they go on to manage flaky tests, which involves some poor technical product owner writing up 100 different tickets over the course of a month and assigning it to people to fix flaky tests. We have to find ways to quarantine the flaky tests. What this means is we still want to run the flaky tests because they can still catch a lot of problems, but we also want to make sure that they don't block PRs. So we run them separately from regular healthy tests, and we quarantine them, and we take their test results less seriously. And at the end, we try to fix the flaky tests, right? These are the different stages. Well, where can we automate some of this process? These tools are usually built with varying levels of automation. A lot of it is manual. How can we automate some of this? And it's difficult to automate some of this, right? Because even these individual steps have a lot of variance, and using a lot of traditional techniques that is purely just, I'm going to take a look at the data, and try to deduce something with classic machine learning techniques. It is really difficult and hasn't worked. It's been explored a lot at Google, actually, but I think there are some new opportunities because we have recently we've been really addicted to trying to fix problems with generative AI, and we're no different, right? Let's talk about detection first. Existing tools analyze test runs and results in a sliding windows, and they have simple rules to mark tests as flaky. But I think there's a couple of opportunities for us to make that experience better. One of the things that we're already doing is we're summarizing test results because it's so easy. It's the first thing that we thought of. It's really easy to take an off-the-shelf model, do almost nothing to it, throw a stack trace at them that we don't want to read, and have a summary. If you want to debug flaky tests, usually you have to look at the last 5 or 6 test runs, and you need to read 5 or 6 stack traces. No one wants to read 5 or 6 stack traces, especially if you have long stack traces because you have hundreds of tests. Slightly more difficult is fingerprinting a failure. If we can summarize a test, that might still be different every single time. You could have a test sort of timeout in 3 different ways. They're all timeouts still, and they should be fingerprinted as the same failure reason. But to accurately label them as the same failure is a little bit more difficult. And that's something that we are exploring. We will most likely have to take a off-the-shelf model, do some fine-tuning with it, also have some expectations on what are the most frequent flaky failure reasons that we need to be aware of, and sort of figure out a way to make that work. We have some engineers working on that, and that's been surprisingly challenging because it turns out everyone's testing infrastructure is so incredibly different that there are some failure reasons that we can't accurately summarize and fingerprint ourselves. So that's unfortunate, but it's something worth taking a look at. And if we can do that accurately, can we mark common flaky failure reasons as flaky without observing that flaky behavior in multiple runs? Right? Recall that right now we sort of look at multiple runs and we deduce, okay, this has failed in unpredictable ways in the last 10 runs. I'm going to call it flaky. But if we can short circuit that, again, a lot of time is saved, right? You don't want that first time a test flakes to surprise people and waste time anyway. The other part that we are doing a lot of things with is generating issue descriptions and automating issue creation for known flaky tests. So if we detect a test as flaky, one of the great things that generative AI can do that we can't do with a lot of traditional machine learning techniques is to figure out, get a off-the-shelf model, give it a very simple prompt. Like this takes not a lot of work at all, and just be like, I don't want to create the issue myself. Please generate me the issue description with sufficient context, obviously more complicated than this, and create a Jira issue or a linear issue or a GitHub issue for known flaky tests. We found this to be something that's really, really liked by engineering managers that we've talked to, and we're generating, issues for them already on Jira. Now, assuming our detection for fingerprinting flaky tests are accurate, can we also detect anomalies? This is one of the really interesting things where we sort of try to fingerprint and deduce a countable, distinct, and finite number of labels for how a test failed, and then we can run more traditional classification and regression techniques to be like, do we see there to be something obviously wrong with this particular run that we don't see before? Do we all of a sudden have like 500 times more tests failing because a container is not coming up? If it is, a dependency might have been updated, right? Someone might have changed the way that a container sets up, or whatever the reason. Can we catch those early? Another less cool but difficult thing to do is to see whether or not we can group common failure reasons and sort of focus our efforts in fixing flaky tests to one area. For example, if you have a lot of bad async code and most of your tests are failing because you use sleep for 30 seconds to wait for something to happen, it can be pretty easy to recognize that. It turns out we've been collecting a lot of flaky failure data from a lot of different teams, and it turns out this is one of the things that we can probably do relatively easily. Quarantining, a little bit more boring. If we are quarantining tests, one of the things we want to be careful with is that if you notice, if we just look at if a test is failing flaky, we're ignoring how it's failing. So really what we want to do is, instead of quarantining every single failure of a known flaky test because it's flaky, we might want to quarantine by failure reason to be more precise. So for example, if your tests are known to time out occasionally, we can quarantine those. But if it's suddenly saying that like 404 or throwing a 500 from the API and that's why it's failing, we want those flaky tests to still be able to fail properly and catch those regressions. And this is one of the things that we've been exploring a lot, because accuracy of quarantining is probably the part that most teams care the most about when dealing with flaky tests, at least from our experience talking to them. And then at the end, there's obviously, we can try to fix flaky tests, right? Root cause detection, that's the holy grail. If we can somehow, even finding the common root causes and being like, this is the code that's probably causing your test to flake, hallelujah. Unfortunately, we're so far away from that right now that like, we need to resolve a lot of the problems we described before we can realistically make an attempt at this. And if we can do that accurately, right, can we do something like there's a cybersecurity company called Pixely that opens PRs when it identifies potential security vulnerabilities for you and suggests fixes. Can we do that? Maybe. I don't know. These are questions that we have no answers to yet. But these are things that we are exploring. And there's some stuff that we're not doing right now. So one of the things that came up with us is we can probably build a linter with some simple rules and a relatively simple model to find common root causes and anti-patterns for flaky tests, like a linter for bad flaky code, right? For example, we can lint for things where we, instead of async waiting, we're pulling for a service to come up. If we're waiting for 30 seconds to see whether a service is going to come up before we try to do something, that's most likely going to be flaky, and that would save a lot of time. So you'd prevent some of that bad test code from coming in the first place, because in today's age, because we don't have a full and complete understanding of some of the things that AI is generating for us. A lot of the times we get a lot of really, really small, weird bugs and anti-patterns sneaking into our repo, because most repos have the same anti-patterns. Anyway, so some closing words. Reach out to me if you'd like sources for any of the studies that we quoted. We've been doing a lot of research on this topic, and we'd love to share some of that research that we did. Everything we mentioned is stuff that we're trying to build in Trunk Flaky Tests. And if that stuff that we talked about is interesting, we're hiring data scientists, data engineers, and DevRels. Contact me if you want to work with me. Yeah, if you want to talk more about flaky tests, reach out to us on Slack. This has been one of those topics that I've been spending way too much time reading on. But yeah, thank you so much for...
Thank you so much, Vincent. Thank you so much. Also, I really enjoyed your presentation, and we have some questions. I don't know if this presentation is available somewhere to share it with the audience, or you have some links that you want to share. Just let me know.
I will create a link for this presentation right now.
Okay.
I've never done it on Canva, but here it is. Let me send you the file.
I think it's doable. Just be careful just to give just the viewer
so.
permissions. Otherwise, people, I don't know, we start editing stuff. And yes. Okay. Is it safe to share?
Whatever.
I mean,
if it's not, I'll find out.
it's not that. So we have at least a couple of questions. In the meanwhile, you can drop as many questions you want. We have 5-10 minutes, so you have time. I think Deepak talked about, it was not exactly a question, but was just saying that he's doing researches for projects. And sometimes, no, I think it was not this one. It was, sorry, this one. Sorry, I got the wrong one. Sometimes doing debugging task again, I asked AI the help, but it's hard. Like, it's hard to ask AI to actually debug. So
Yeah.
she can help in the process, but not in this. So what do you think about this?
This is exactly why we've sort of been exploring a way to have AI act more as more towards amplifying individual small bits of the problem that we know it can solve instead of throwing the entire problem at it. We've really found that it's really good at specific things already that we find annoying as humans to do, because it's not going to get tired. But we've also found the same issue where, like, if you're facing flaky tests, you show the test to, like, say GitHub Copilot. You're like, this test is flaky. Why is it flaky? The answers are almost always worthless. And so I think we're not there yet in terms of being able to debug entire problems. But if you can break it down, it's still very useful, I think.
Yeah, I'm also a very huge fan of, like, very specific things and specific tools. Like, this is from my experience and from my human experience, they're usually better. Like, if you have one tool that does one exact thing, that probably will be used forever. If you try to do many things at the same time, sometimes it works, but it's hard.
I mean, cost is another issue with it too, right? Like, you have to have a relatively small, simple, but well-tuned model for one specific problem is a lot cheaper to run, like exponentially cheaper. And when you're talking about some of these people that we work with giving us thousands of test runs for every PR they open, if you have a big expensive model that you're trying to use for whatever purpose you're trying to use, it's just not going to work. So
yes, exactly. I think we have Devan Chan. I've written my whole ETL pipeline with Python using ChatGPT. Pros, fast, cons. I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with the research that we're doing, like, as much as I love a lot of these companies, AI generated end-to-end tests are a lot flakier than the ones that humans write, and they're a lot harder to debug because people don't really know what's going on in them. So
yes, and this is basically we summed up the whole 2024 with this comment. I think we just did all of us in 2023 and 2024. This is funny, of course, but this is also sort of dangerous. It depends. I mean, if you are just destroying your side project, you're also having fun. If you're doing this on a code base that then you can't revert, I don't know. Exactly. In that case, probably it's a bigger problem. We should still at least understand what's going on, and this is why we need the experts in a domain. From my experience, AI it has been very useful, even from my perspective. Many things on my YouTube channel have never been possible without the support of AI. So I would have done less things. We should not forget to at least understand the concepts and the basics. And now probably it's even more important to understand the concepts and the meaning with all of this. We have, of course, a question about the hiring process, because some people are curious. So maybe you can expand more about this. I'm sure that people are interested into this.
So there's a couple of caveats. We're only hiring in US and Canada for various reasons. So that's the first thing to be aware of. Our hiring process is pretty interesting. You talk to a recruiter just to make sure that like you're actually interested in the job. We're very much, this is a strange company. We work on obscure that developer experience tools. So, and then you'll get a single technical phone screen, and if it's like, cool, I think we enjoy talking to you, and then you'll get a single onsite, and you'll be set. The onsite will have the usual, one or two problem-solving problems. You'll do some system design and something specific to your domain. If you're applying for a front-end role, you'll do React. But I don't know what data scientists and data engineers will have in their interviews. You're muted.
Self-cam. But I'm excused because we are at the end of the day, 6:30 p.m. I woke up at 4 a.m. So this is like midnight for me. So I'm just still wake up, but it's late for me. Of course, we were not laughing at you, but I also was in the same situation. Rewriting from scratch in a technology you know more probably is a good idea. And yes, and this is, I think, if you use it to understand some basics about a language, it can be useful. We should just not disconnect the brain. This is the temptation when you're doing AI. I don't know, just disconnect, just cross fingers, hope it works. It doesn't work, I'm doomed. It works fine. But in both cases, probably it will be hard to just change it and modify the what and also test it. So this is the thing. Otherwise, you don't even know what to test. And yes, so Vincent, thank you so much. I see you are doing very cool stuff. I'm looking forward to do more collaborations together, maybe even on Twitter. Why not? We can also do something. My last request as a host is that we left a link to a feedback type form. So if you want to give feedback about this event, if you want to say good things or bad things, you can do it.
Hopefully good things.
And hopefully good things. Even if, to be honest, there is a caveat, because usually people who give feedback are the angry people. Like you never contact your electricity company if everything is working, usually. Only when there is an issue. So, but it's fine. I'm hoping that we will get also some good things. I learned a lot from these 3 talks. So thank you so much, Vincent. I like what you're doing, and I like also these kind of presentations. To be honest, you said that it was not technical, but from my point of view, it was a very nice introduction. I also feel bad when I do a less technical talk. I don't know. I think it's everything just in my head, to be honest. Yeah. And yes, so thank you so much. Do you have any advice for machine learning engineer? Not much on my side, but I don't know. That's basically a different job. So yes, we have the default one. Probably my tip is just to focus on a good programming language for machine learning. Probably that's probably Python. You can start and then you can see, because it's basically like a whole universe, a galaxy, I would say, machine learning itself. I will say that probably is not the most mainstream solution and work. It's similar to the tips similar that I give for cybersecurity. Like if you really like it, there is a good career. It's probably not the most mainstream, but not everyone has to do the mainstream solution. So at least you should try it out. And yes, probably there is more math than other branches in IT and software development. So that's from my point of view. Vincent, I don't know if you want to add something on this question.
I've done a single internship as an ML engineer. I don't know how I got that job, so I have no useful advice. I'm not.
You did something. I think I never heard of someone like ending up by mistake in a machine learning job. To be honest, maybe you are the first one.
I think it's useful to, as much as like the fancy stuff that we see today is interesting, I think it's really good to revisit like basics of reinforcement learning, and also look at like some of the older not machine learning type AI algorithms, like get familiar with fuzzy algorithms and simple stuff like that, because a lot of times I find for entry jobs you'll be given simple problems that you can solve with simple tools, but we tend to reach for all the big cool ones. And so I don't know, that's my advice. That's what I did. I don't know if it works.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vincent. And so we shared the link already. And this is the end of this the monthly dev event. We are on time today. We have another event on the 29th of October that will be about productivity. Also, you mentioned productivity in some ways, also content switching, I think. So we actually have a talk about content switching exactly. So
really?
that's a nice
That's
hook
amazing.
for the next episode. 3 more events to go in 2025. We are in the last quarter of 2025. It seems impossible to me, but we are there.
So fast.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Really, really appreciated. Of course, the last shout out is for Daily Dev. We have been doing this free event for everyone for almost 4 years now. So this is, I think, great kudos to us and to all the organizers. Thank you so much to all the speakers. Of course, we have the links to all the speakers in the description, including Vincent and everyone else. We are done. I am done. Thank you so much, Vincent, for
Have a great
joining.
day.
Looking forward for more collaborations. Really,
course.
really enjoyed whatever we are doing. And yes, see you.
I'll make
and,
sure to get you a swag box when we get that done.
You know, it's always a pleasure. I would say this is the job of developer advocate. We exchange swag. There is this this thing, but
The
it's
whole
all
reason
like
why I'm in this
all
industry.
organic. Like we have swag to share for sure. We have tons of swag. So thank you so much, Vincent. Appreciated, and see you in the next episode. I also saw that you appreciated the intro theme.
It's great.
Nice. Thank you so much, and bye, everyone. See you next in 4 weeks. Bye bye.